Through the union of understanding, let us become one whom grows.
First of all, can you tell me what divine reality means to you?
Sure. Great question. Divine reality. It's like much like this world, but literally anything you think comes true, more or less, and it's from the divine power of doing that. And the highest form of that is when everyone's doing that in harmony to create a beautiful world together, and that would be the kingdom of heaven. Is being in alignment, I would say. That's what it's all about. Finding that which you see in the world that you love and find beautiful, and somehow being a part of that.
And that's what's really cool. Like, we are each our own separate, different type of person, our own image of God is what I might call it. If God created each of us for a reason, and if I'm able to like tap into that, what greater almost like a power can I have, or like a channel maybe that he would go, what could that look like?
Hello and again, welcome to Discovering Our Spirit. I am, of course, Lord Captain David T. Featherwalker, and today with me I have Marla, a friend, a neighbor, a gardener, and a beautiful, beautiful soul. I am very thankful to have this opportunity to sit with her and understand her perspective of reality, of religion, of truth, what she believes to be like her guiding light in life. Because I truly believe that what we don't know about life, what we don't understand that we don't know, is the things that really trip us up. But if we find through understanding each other different ways to perceive life, to perceive how we can understand who we are, then maybe, just maybe, we can have less mistakes in life and more harmony. And with that, we're going to go ahead and get started.
All right.
So Marla, dropping right into the first question. What do you believe is the fundamental basis of this reality that we exist within and your relationship with it? Kind of like, if it's spirit, if it's, atoms and molecules, what do you believe is the fundamental basis of existence itself?
Yeah, that's not a question I usually think about. So when I hear that, you can ask me all the questions you want, though, to try to like narrow it down a little bit more.
Sure, absolutely.
So when I think about existence, I do think about God, and we'll get into that, like, what does that mean to me? Because I know God means a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
Absolutely.
But so to me, and because we could even call that like Mother Nature, because I feel very attuned to nature.
Yeah.
But so I believe that in the very beginning, that God did create it all. And I don't care if it was 14 billion years ago or what, but I believe that behind everything there is someone who cares and someone who loves us very deeply. And so how would I say this? It's like he create, and I call him he. So, and I know a lot of people would say they or it or whatever,
Sure.
but I'm like old school.
No worries.
Old school. Yeah, I know, and I don't apologize for that. It's just where I'm coming from, because that's how I learned to perceive him was male.
Yeah.
But in no way do I think he has to be male, because he's spirit.
Yeah.
And so there is really no male or female in spirit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
it's
agree.
just the way I'm comfortable referring to him. And so I do believe that at the very beginning of everything, that he created it, and that that my existence on this earth is something that he planned a long time ago. And why? I have no idea why. I don't know exactly why I'm here. But that's what I try to discover maybe almost every day. If I'm really like focusing in on today, I'll think about, why am I here today? Because to me it's like, if God created each of us for a reason, and if I'm able to like tap into that, what greater almost like a power can I have, or like a channel maybe that he would go, what could that look like? And I can't, that's like crazy when you really think about it.
Is it though?
Well, to me, it's like crazy wild that I can either like just do my own thing and be in my head, or I can actually let someone who could create a star create something in me. To me, that's wild. It's not wild to you?
I think it's been a commonplace staple of my life for so long, that concept, that I don't separate from it. I might have told you this. I definitely said it before on the podcast, I think. When I was younger in college, I was like borderline suicidal for a little while there.
No, you didn't tell me that.
Well, I was. I was.
Okay.
And I remember during the one time that I put a bathrobe tie around my neck just to see what it would feel like. Yeah, I know. Not a great story, but it comes to a beautiful ending. A song came on the Pandora that I was listening to called One Republic Good Life. Like, this could really be a good life was the lyrics. And I felt this like warmth in my chest that was like almost like felt like the song was speaking to me through some kind of light that was like emanating in me. And like it felt some connection to this energy. And at that time, that's all it was to me. It didn't have any real meaning besides that, a warm guiding light of some kind. And now it's over the many years of like experiencing that and working with that, it's come to the point that whenever I need guidance, I can literally close my eyes, take a few deep breaths, ask for an answer, and then a voice will come over me. I feel the pressure in my throat, and if I look in a mirror, a twinkle will be in my eye, and something will come over me and speak to me through me, loving guidance of how I can improve or what I could do. Like, it's just, it's an actual light that emanates from me and then speaks and tells me beneficial actions I can take to improve whatever area of my life I'm asking about.
I find that amazing, actually.
It's just, I think, so when you say, like, could something come through you? I'm like, well, yeah. Of course it can. It's just how it is.
Yeah, all the time.
It doesn't sound weird to me at all. I think a lot of spiritual people I talk to argue there's only one real choice in life, and it's whether you choose to try and align with spirit or not. And the more you're in alignment with spirit, the more all of your actions are somehow wrapped in grace, and things just happen synchronistically at just the right time, and you still get to choose the path you're going in your life. But the most important thing is, are you aligned in those choices, or are you disaligned in those choices?
Okay, so here's the thing. Over my lifetime, I have seen so many people misuse the God told me to do this, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think that for me, there's always that little bit of a, like, how can you know it's God? Or just maybe the suspicion, like, I don't suspect you, I'm not saying that, but just want,
I don't think Kat would like me if that's the case.
Oh, that's right. Just thinking of how it can be misused, or I've seen it misused.
Oh yeah, like the
Crusades
I guess, is a great
honestly,
example.
Right.
Like,
that's a good example of like, God wants us to conquer this land, and that kind of, and so using God's name for conquest, or just an excuse, I think, to do your own thing. I don't really know. I mean, I'd have to know a person's motive of why they keep like pulling the God card and saying, God told me to do this. But so I get a little leery of that.
I agree. And that's my even stronger argument for why I believe free will exists rather than not. I don't think it's absolute destiny, but rather we have will. Because I'll get into that in a minute. But I want to touch on one thing. I believe it's Alan Watts, a philosopher that I absolutely love, Zen Buddhist kind of philosophy here. And he says, in regards to that, is, any person that says they have the absolute answer, or like, I'm most holier than thou kind of person, run. Because every person has them. I think he said something along the lines of the irreverent particle of rascality in them. Everyone's a little mischievous at times.
Right.
And when you
Yeah.
don't know that that is just a part of your soul, and it's not a bad thing to have, because being playful is what mischievousness is in a certain extent, but it can be taken to an extreme. And when it's not noticed, then it's not worked with inside oneself. It's not.
Wait, stop. If it's not noticed, who would notice?
So-
Outside or you as the person?
So if the crusader does not know that they could be doing something because they want to rather than God wants them to, if they don't know that there's this mischievous energy in them that will give them things, then they'll think anything coming through them is automatically the holy light. But if you know that there's a mischievous side of yourself, then you can question, okay, is this thing coming through? Is that coming from the mischievous side, or is that coming from the divine side? Or maybe it is supposed to be like a mischievous joke, but I can see how I'm making sure there's no harm coming through as I do this thing. Then it can, like, you can get more into the whole nitty gritty of finding the nuances of really feeling a place where spirit's doing things through oneself. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, we can't absolutely know. I don't think we can. So it's important to see that we have the responsibility to choose our actions, and not just say, I'm going to follow this guidance in this moment. All the great masters I listen to say question everything, no matter who says it. And when we're working with voices in our heads, as I often experience, I think it's important to know that if anything is speaking to you spiritually, if it's embodied, if it's been made form in the sense that it can talk to you, then it is an entity. It is something that's manifested. And God is infinite and beyond any manifestation. God is all manifestation. So any manifest thing automatically has some kind of ego, has some kind of preferences. Now, you might be talking to angels. That's a good thing. You might be talking to demons. That thing, right? So you gotta find a place of spiritual, I want to say emptiness, in the sense that you are able to feel the fullness of something. Not a nothingness, but a no thingness. It's just pure present space. And when we sit in that presence, I've experienced being able to watch my emotions rise and fall enough times to see what patterns I tend to use to trick myself into doing things. And then I know when one of those is the thing doing it, because I've seen it enough times. No, oh, there, I see you. You're making a joke to try and trick me into eating that ice cream. I know it's bad for me right now. I'm trying to get fit, okay? We're going to stay away from that ice cream. But I think at the end of the day, it's a lot of when we see things that we wish to change in the world, and then finding harmonious ways to inspire that change by being examples of it rather than telling others of things to do, is more often when it's divine guidance. Because I don't think the divine will force anyone actively to do stuff. Though there are some stories in the Bible and other places where there is that kind of thing. So I don't know.
There's a few, but I agree. I don't think that is something God does so much as force because of free will. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I like.
So that's a good point.
I like what you said about Mother Nature. What do you feel in your connection with that as divinity? Do you see like a female, a place where there could be like seeing God as a feminine energy in the world? Because I feel like that's not as much in Christianity, and
Right.
I feel that's kind of a loss to a lot of women
Yeah.
to not be able to feel empowered in that way, knowing that the divinity can also be a female presence.
Yeah, that's true. And so just even being able to think about Mother Nature, it probably took me a while to be like, oh, this isn't wrong, is it? Because, with my background, if you started talking about Mother Nature, then you were some
You're a
weirdo
witch.
spiritualist. Well, just, you're way out there. You're going to be, taking that slippery slope down the, I don't know, the weird way, where you actually just like completely get away from God or something. I don't know. It's one of those things that you just kind of, it's part of your culture. You don't really think about it.
Yeah.
And then the older I got, I remember just just really funny little things of realizing that God, didn't have to be a he. I remember I was in a Bible study and we were all using the New American Standard Bible. And in that, God is called a he, and the he is always capitalized, always. And then someone came to Bible study with a new Bible, maybe Revised Standard, I don't know. And he was not capitalized. And you would think that shouldn't matter at all, right? And it was kind of a big deal for a while. Like, what does that mean? Does that mean we don't care about God? Does that mean that we don't revere him very well and disrespect and all of that? So then I'm just telling you that little bit to show like how hard or long it took me to like come from where you're even talking about capital words, capital H's, to saying Mother Nature without feeling like I just like stabbed God in the back. But when you really read the Bible, God himself calls himself a mother at times, and he talks about there's one that I can't remember which scripture it is. It's in the Old Testament, and he talks about himself like a shepherd with his sheep, but he talks about as though he was a mother. And so I realized that it's quite okay for God to be both mother and father. And then the more I kept thinking, it just kept leading deeper and deeper to he really is mother and father. How can you possibly be the spirit that created all creation and not be everything? He's just everything. So, so I went from that to, for a while, I was teaching these Bible studies, and I would write my own lessons. So then we had lessons on God being both mother and father. So
Very cool.
yeah, I kind of came full circle on that a little bit. So when I think of Mother Nature, I guess it's just that there's something. Well, we were talking about the sequoias yesterday. There is just something beautiful in nature that seems to be better described if you think of feminine to me.
Yeah.
So that would be all it is.
Abundant. It like is
Right.
very giving. It's it kind of like goes with the flow of things that they are. It is creation itself, one might say, right?
And it's nurturing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very much. Yeah.
And I see it as a way to even get more in tune with being one with God and understanding our relationship with God and how we come from him is the idea of, well, we are made of nature too. Like if we can see this beautiful, loving energy all around us that's living life, that constantly seems to create and grow and transform into all these kinds of beautiful forms and shapes and is nurturing. And in a way, our bodies are also made of that system that we exist within. So we are made of that which is. And if everything is made of the divine light, then that's how we can see us as the divine light as well. Like a way to like come back into that full circle and feel that connection with God through that rather than saying God is something different. This is how I see it, I guess. For me, the way I started seeing cat, that's my skin.
Ouch.
So for me, it's like the idea that I'm big in like the idea of you can't describe something that's infinite in a finite way without giving it boxes, because our brain encapsulates things more often than not. That's how we make boxes to understand stuff. So to describe something that is both the perceiver and creator of all reality and the reality itself, you split it into two parts: that which is looking forth and doing the creation, and then the creation itself. But really they're the same thing because they're all made of the same energy. So I would describe the creator as masculine and all of its creations as feminine, but they're one thing still. We're not separating there. But so all of the power of reality is a female power. And so because it's the actual womb, we exist within the womb of God, as I might say, right? And so it would be silly to me not to see feminine energy as empowering energy and energy of the divine in force of creation. And then when we're talking about the divine presence as just an observer, then we describe it as like the masculine energy that is there and like might hold the creation in its mind, and then the mind in creation itself is the feminine power. But I would still call them the same being. There's just different ways to describe this infinite being by breaking it into pieces to look at it more analytically. And so I don't see a really big disconnect there. So I can see Mother Nature and all this kind of things as the loving infinite mother, and then I can see the divine Father that sits separate from the creation, but see them as one thing, just different facets of the same thing. And then when we talk about God itself, we have to accept that when we say God, at least I feel, that there can't be a complete box on that word. There has to be, well, I'm not quite sure what it means, but I know it's beyond all things and is all things. It might be easier to say everything it's not, because everything we see, it's more than that. And yes, it also is that. And so it's by having that infinite concept, we can accept that we don't really know, but at the same time we can experience it and be one with it and grow with it and transform with it and learn from it. And I guess this gets down to what I see the fundamental basis is spirit, is the spirit energy. But would you agree with that? Would you say that like the actual this is made of spirit itself, or what would you say the physical stuff is?
I don't think I've really thought about that much. So you're saying that this is spirit as well.
Vibrating at such a fast frequency that it seems to be solid. But really, the fastest frequencies fall through everything because they oscillate in such a tiny pattern that the most powerful thing is the most subtle. And then as it slows down in a way, it becomes physical because it can hold shapes, but it's vibrating at such fast rates and such similar rates to us that it seems physical, we can't pass through it. But the most subtle thing, the most pure form of it that we can't even truly understand because its very nature is so inextricably linked with the divine itself that we know it's beyond our fullest conception. But in some way, the most subtle piece of all of this is the highest divine form, vibrating in such a way so we can experience each other, so we can experience and learn about the divine, grow as divine beings, all of it being the spiritual energy.
Well, that is over my head. I think it would be like I would have to like study that. Like, I'm not saying it's not true. I just never even thought about it. Yeah.
So you just see it as physical stuff? Like,
okay.
Cool.
Yeah. Physical stuff. But I mean, I'm always fascinated by learning that things are other things and they don't have to be just one thing.
Yeah.
Like this is solid, that's it. But yeah, I've never even thought about it.
I think about these questions a lot. And I like listening to philosophy about it. That's why I like hearing everyone's perception.
Well, and I do too, because I always learn and I get really excited about that. Just learning what other people have thought about, what they've learned, especially when it's just so different than what I know. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Growth.
Yeah, cheers to growth for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
I love chewing ice. My favorite thing to do.
It's a bad thing.
A guilty pleasure.
I know. The last time I went to the dentist, she says, "Oh, your teeth are looking really great," and I'm like, phew. And then she goes, "But we do need to put a crown on this tooth back here because it is cracking."
Uh-oh.
And so I'm like, oh, shoot. How can she say my teeth are perfect, right? And then tell me that
it's a
I think she
compliment
does.
sandwich.
It's a compliment. I was like, I don't appreciate that. But she's like, okay, until we get that crown on, don't chew any ice. Okay.
So, if you believe in like the Holy Spirit being in all things and stuff like that, though, right? Like, is that how do you perceive that as from your perspective and your teachings of growing up? How do you perceive the Holy Spirit within reality?
Within reality, I don't know that I think of the Holy Spirit as that much of a separate entity.
Hmm.
So just like I believe you have a spirit and I have a spirit within me, then when I'm thinking of just like the Spirit of God, it's just like God's Spirit. It's not something, I mean, it seems like when I'm listening to you that you're thinking of something a little more, what would I say, distinct from other things. And maybe that's not true.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a distinct thing separate from all things. I think we're agreeing in certain pieces. I don't see it as separate from anything. However, I do see that I theorize that there's a pure form of spirit, like what one might feel when they're in like what one might call like Christ consciousness or something like that. There's a very pure form of spirit that can be felt, and then there is, I wouldn't say, I would say that it's currently in the form of manifestation, so it can be things, but there's like an undifferentiated, like a stem cell of spirit, if you will, before it becomes all the little things that we see throughout reality and all that kind of stuff. And that's what I say is tap inable to, and that's God's spirit always. And then God also has this creation, which is also spirit, but has been projected into images, which created form, which is what we see before us.
So spirit that actually is created into images, is that what you said?
Well, I guess to take a step back, I see reality as like the awareness of the divine, and we exist within the infinite womb of the divine mind. Just constantly, everything it thinks, this is the Word of God, all the things we see. All reality itself is God expressing themselves. Even we are part of God being, its children being created, we are part of that expression. And so when I say images, um, because that's the framework I hold in my mind of how God creates, then when I think God creates an image, to us, it's reality itself. But that's similar to how the creation process would exist, I feel, from the divine level, is it's literally it thinks it into being. Its very will becomes reality. And the essence that we would see tying our physical reality to the spiritual realm, the closest link would be spirit, the divine presence, ether, some people have once called it, which is a thing that isn't quite matter, but isn't quite energy. It's something in between the two. That's how I get with it, but
I get it. So what I'm thinking, and this just makes it an interesting conversation, is that I have this one grid of like the way I understand the world and how it works. And then of course that's why you're asking me questions. Because you want to know like what I think about, like what is the grid and
Absolutely.
all. But it's so different than your grid. So in a way, like when we're talking right now, I feel like, in some ways we're using words that we both understand, but they mean something totally different, I'll bet.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Language does not teach, experience
Right.
does.
Yeah. So it would just take some time before I think I really understood what you were saying,
But I feel to some degree there is a similarity in how we see it. I'm just being more analytical and trying to draw parallels from physical reality into the divine reality. And you just see it as all encompassing the divine reality. We already exist in it right now, in a way? Or how would you?
Well, first of all, can you tell me what divine reality means to you?
Sure. Great question. Divine reality would be um, ineffable and indescribable in its inherent nature. However, from our place of perception, I would say It is a realm of infinite living light that anything that is thought upon becomes form instantaneously through the majestic power of the divine creation. And as such, it's like heaven if you are a pure person because your thoughts are of lovely and beautiful things. And you don't have frustrations or hatreds towards yourself. You've forgiven yourself for any difficulties you've had in life and learning. And so in that place, it's just amazing. But if we were to hold on to like really crappy things and like, be bad towards others and stuff like that, and all of that's our regular thought processes, in that place where anything happens instantaneously with our thoughts, well, it'd be like kind of like a hell until you burned away that negativity, which would all the divine would be trying to do for you constantly because it's trying to get you there. It's conspiring for your success.
Yeah.
And so the divine realm to me would be a place of being in which anything is possible pretty much instantaneously through the power of divine action and will. So it's like it's like much like this world, but literally anything you think comes true, more or less, and it's from the divine power of doing that. And the highest form of that is when everyone's doing that in harmony to create a beautiful world together, and that would be the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah.
So to speak.
I was just thinking it sounds like the kingdom of heaven. Right.
But I think everyone's heaven would be a little different than anyone else's due to life experiences and stuff like that. So you'll get exactly what you always wanted out of life. All the beautiful things mixed with all the lessons that you can learn through those nuances that for you after you die.
Yeah. That sounds close to what I think.
Something similar.
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah, certainly not like so when I was growing up, we would always sing hymns about the streets of gold, that kind of thing. So I think I was maybe like 12 years old. And I asked my dad, I'm like, do you really want to go to heaven? And he said, oh, yeah. And I'm like, I don't. And he's like, why? I thought, have you ever really thought what it looks like to have streets of gold? Like, who cares? Who cares about streets of gold? Why would that make me want to be like a good person so that I could go to heaven?
Right on the knee.
Ouch. So, yeah, it's that kind of thing. Like, I don't think of heaven that way at all. It's just got to be a place where, like, kind of like you said, where you get to be exactly who you're meant to be. I really don't think that I'm going to be a different person when I'm there. I don't know about bodies. I don't really know how that will be, but I don't think it'll be that important. And we will just be there and we'll be each our true selves. So I have a sister that died, 2014, so it's been 8 years. And she just had a lot of trouble, and then felt shame because of it. And so when I think of her and I think of Sherry, I'm like, when I see Sherry, she's just going to be able to look me right in the eye, and I will just know. I mean, I'll know why she was bulimic and alcoholic, and yet kept it from all of us. And we suspected, but she would never admit it for fear of judgment. And so when I think of that, I think that in heaven we will just be who we are, and we'll be free to be who we are. Yeah. And that'll be a very beautiful thing, to be able to know each person just as they are. They don't have to be ashamed anymore, if that's how they felt on earth.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it's, in a way, we have difficulties in this experience so that we can grow spiritually. And then when we're in the divine realm, then it's not just being oneself from who we are here, but rather it's like we transcend and let go of not just the shame of things that we are or have done, but rather the pain that caused us to be that way will also be removed. So we'll be the bright, shiny version of ourselves that was
Yeah.
able to not do this or not do that or not be here or not be there, and just in divine harmony with all the other people. And so then it's just free from that negative intensities that cause us to have to feel like we hide and all this kind of stuff. And those we'll still have all of those experiences from Earth, but we'll be in a state of understanding for why we grew that way, what happened to us, and it will allow us to be even more better divine beings. That's why I kind of believe in reincarnation in a way. I feel the whole idea is we come here and experience all this stuff, and then we get to feel all the beauty of what could have been and should have been in our lives with all the people that we loved. And you do that for eons, praising the divine light and all of God's creation and His glory. And eventually, you're like, what would it be like to go around again? With all this new knowledge that I have, with all this new spirit, and then the seed of our truth is planted into a new child, and then we are born again. And similar cycles of constantly growing and more understanding the divine through multiple lifetimes is my idea of it. But we still go to heaven for an eternity or two, you know?
Or two.
You know, for
One already boggles my mind. Oh, gosh.
But that might kind of segue naturally into our next question here, actually. For people that are having difficulty in their life, what do you feel would be things that you do in your life that make you feel more connected to this divine inside yourself, within the reality around you? I know you garden a lot, and maybe we can get into that a bit, like how that might be something very helps you connect with the divinity. But what do you feel could be beneficial habits people could build in their lives to help them feel more connected to that feeling of divine, so they feel less shameful and frustrated and can improve their lives in a positive direction towards that light?
Okay, that's a good question. Especially put that way, like so that they don't have to feel that shame. That requires being completely open, even with yourself. And I'm sure you've heard many people say that they just can't be alone with themselves for more than 5 minutes. They just can't do it. They can't stand it. And so, I don't know the answer for that for people that cannot be alone with themselves, because it does feel like there's something that even they just do not want to face in themselves, and they've got to face it. So, I don't know. In that way, part of that would be, and I don't know the answer. That would be for different, probably for each person, of why they wouldn't want to be alone with themselves, and then to work on that somehow. But for me, I've always liked to be alone, so that is not a problem. And because I love people, and I get energized by being with people and like talking with you. And then I also have my times where I just want to shut myself in the house, and I just don't, it's like I can't.
Been there.
Yeah. Have you? Yeah. So in that way I live kind of a funny little life of like loving people and then wanting to just kind of be alone. But one of the things that for me I have found is that it brings me joy is when I am noticeably, or I notice what I'm grateful for. I have to really think about it. So I think I told you this before, that I have a journal that I keep. And so I try to write something every day of whatever I'm grateful for. And it doesn't have to be big at all, And in fact, sometimes the best ones are the littlest ones. Just noticing things and realizing that nothing is forever. So to just realize that every little thing is from God and there's beauty in it, and to notice it and to be grateful for it. And so when I do that, it completely takes my mind away from being ungrateful or crabby or critical, but I notice, I guess, just the beauty of the world and what I have rather than what I don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, every day I just write in this little journal some different things. Like I'm sure I'll write tonight or tomorrow that I had this conversation with you because I'm grateful for that. A lot of gratitude for that.
Too,
Oh, thank you.
You're a beautiful
So,
soul. I
oh,
love being in your presence.
well, thank you. Well, I think that, I like being with you too. And I think that there is just something so like peaceful and satisfying about someone that will look you in the eye like you do and not be afraid of that and will like listen for truth uh, and not be worried about all the little stuff that doesn't matter,
Absolutely.
And I love that I can be really honest with you. Like, do you remember just last week when I went over to Shelley's and I was getting some plums or whatever from her, and I didn't really talk to you. And it's just because my mind was completely somewhere else. And I don't remember what I was doing, but I might have even been in the Marla doesn't feel like really having a lot of conversation mode today. I wouldn't doubt it. And then later, but then I'm like, certain people, I would never think another thought about that. Like if I just said hi and then just said something silly to them, but I can't do that with you. It's like that doesn't cut it. I think I said something to you like, "Have a good whatever it was. Oh, have fun with the plums or something." I'm like, that might work with a lot of people, but that's not going to work with David. Even if he doesn't care, I care. So, so later I went and said something to you, because it's like, I'm not going to do that to him. That's just, and that may have been more for me than you because I wasn't being true to me,
Yeah.
So I have this piece of paper. So I have like the journal I told you about, but I also have like a notebook where I just like write out all my thoughts, and they can be they can be positive or negative. They can be anything. And at the very beginning, when you open that notebook, inside it says, "Do not disturb," big letters. Do not disturb. But the not is crossed out because that's that's like me in a nutshell. I will often put on a do not disturb sign. But that is not me. That's not who I want to be. So yeah. So I took my do not disturb sign off that day over there, and I took it off, and then I went over to say hi. And the great thing about that is when I came back over there on my butterfly bush, there was a monarch. That was the first time I'd seen that monarch.
It's like almost like when we get into synchronicity with who we feel we should be. We get beautiful little signs that come around.
Yeah, isn't that something?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I feel like doing something like a gratitude journal. I'm familiar with that as well. One of the teachers I like to listen to, Abraham Hicks, they channel an entity that they claim to be called Abraham, and it's like a living infinite intelligence of divine that it's their own version of seeing the divinity within and seeing creation. It's where law of attraction stuff comes from a lot. I'm not sure if you're familiar. Well, that's neither here nor there.
Okay.
They talk about doing gratitude journals to train yourself into this space of allowing beautiful things to come to you in your life. And I feel like a gratitude journal, in a way, is a regular practice that gets us into this state of appreciation, which is when we're in a state of appreciation, We can appreciate the thoughts that come through ourselves and be like, you know what? I will be this person in this way. And then you go do this, and then it lines you up with other positive experiences. I truly believe that the divine is conspiring for your success. It's always trying every single day to get little things into your life that it can fit in there to make you feel good, to make you feel empowered, to make you feel loved, to make you feel every single thing that you want to feel. However, when one is in a state of lack or in a state of frustration or I want to be courageous, God gives you an opportunity to be courageous, which means it's going to give you more troubles to be courageous about. But when you're in a state of gratitude, God will see that, oh, they're thankful for that which is coming to them, which means they'll have more things that come to you. It's training ourselves into this state. Gratitude is a superpower, in my opinion. When you're in this state of gratitude, it's the state of allowing. It is. It's the state of, I feel grateful. I feel great fullness in my life. I feel so full, so whole, so connected to all the things around me. I'm so, it's titillating to the senses. I feel alive just looking at this tree, the beauty of how it, this one right here, look with me, Marla. We can't see it, Charlie. It's just for us in this moment. But how it stands so towering against the blue sky. It's beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful.
And being able to appreciate those things allows us to be in this open-minded state. And an open-minded state means more different thoughts can come, which means there's more likelihood of finding solutions to problems. And then feeling our way towards answers rather than thinking that we know the answers. And gratitude's all about that. And having a journal that you do gratitude with, I think it's a great thing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love it. I really do. I will never stop. And I've been like counting them. I don't know why. That's just that little like whatever. Like, but yeah, so I filled up one with 5,000.
Ooh.
Yeah. And now I'm on 3,300 something.
Oh.
Somehow it just makes me happy to think that since I don't know what year I started this journal, I think it might have been 2013. I mean, just having gratitude might have been 2013. And so just to think that in that amount of time, I found like 8,000 things to be grateful for.
Yeah, that's
I don't
awesome.
know. Yeah,
that's
it's
awesome.
kind of fun to think that.
Yeah.
And how many more there are that I didn't really capture or notice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think for some people, writing is not as much what they prefer. I'm a little slow writer. Just for anyone watching, I think it would be beneficial. You could do a voice journal, or you could use your TikTok as your gratitude journal if you wanted to. Like literally anything. You could record yourself doing it, and then you could go back on a bad day and look at the things you're grateful for, and see that positive version of yourself, and feel that energy.
That's nice to do that.
And I think that's what gratitude journals are too. It's just it's a place where you can store a lot of potent positivity. Which means later in the day, if you're frustrated, be like, what was I grateful for earlier today? And it can you can open up your heart a little bit in those moments because you stored that set point every day or regularly. So that, I think for me, that's what meditation is about, is clearing my mind so that when I'm frustrated later, what meditation feel like again this morning? And instantly, when you're back there, you might not get rid of all the feeling, but it mixes that emotion that you're currently feeling with those emotions from before. And that's another thing why I think gratitude journals are super cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's good. Or even just being able to say, I'm going to write that down later,
Yeah. You're really milking. You're like, ooh, that was a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. I can't wait
that
to
piece
write.
of candy.
But I think, again, it is, you said something about connections, and I think it does help you connect with the world. Because you're, so if I see that, I'm looking out there at my butterfly bush, so if I see that monarch, which I hadn't seen a monarch for 4 years, so to be able to see that monarch and to not just blow that off, but it's like, oh my gosh, no, this is a moment that I'm going to savor. Yeah. And so I think, when you start writing things down, you realize how important they really are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm going to pause this here 1 second. I just want to make sure this is still recording. It is still recording. We're at 56 minutes.
Oh, that did go fast.
Right?
Like you said. You said it would.
It's like, how could I possibly talk for 2 hours? And 4 hours later. But I would like to touch on one more thing before our last question.
Okay.
Is gardening, because I feel like, what is gardening like for you? Do you feel like really, I feel like it's such a Zen practice, the garden,
Yeah.
like, because it's a practice of nurturing. It's a practice of, getting your hands in the soil, creating something, watching something grow, and then getting the
Right.
benefits from that. It's like training long-term gratification rather than short-term gratification, which a lot of kids don't have these days.
Yeah.
And it's also a place of just peace, because like it's the garden, it's green, it's
Right.
fresh. How does gardening affect your life in a positive and or negative way, depending on your perspective?
Well, I would say there's a connection definitely with soil. And when you put your hands in the soil, and they're finding out there really is, and you probably know more about this than I do, but there is something in the soil that actually, like, I don't, does it, you must know, David.
So, so,
Because I'm going to stumble.
so I'm sure there's stuff beneficial of the actual mineral content of the soil. I have no data on that at all. However, there is healing antioxidant effect just by touching the earth. So the
Okay,
earth
yeah.
itself is, as far as your body's concerned, an infinite supply of of electrons, of negative charge. Okay, and antioxidants are a piece of food that has free electrons in the shell of the electrons. You know how atoms and they have the electrons floating around? Well, the farther they get away, they need a certain amount of electrons to be stable. And if there's ones with only like one extra one on the outside, that one can just pop off, no problem. Free
Yeah.
radicals are ones that have a lot and they want one more. So when they're going through their body, they're like ripping electrons out of your body. But electrons are used to make bonds. So it's breaking down your tissues. So when you eat antioxidants, it replaces those. So your tissues can work harmoniously. When you touch the earth, you're literally absorbing electrons from the planet to replenish the supply.
Oh, wow.
So you're literally healing your body. There's studies to show that people have less inflammation, different kinds of stuff like that, just from, they call it 20 to 30 minutes of grounding each day. Yeah. Straight up fantastic
Wow,
for you.
that is fantastic.
And it's all
Yeah.
energy. It's the spirit of the planet going into the body, which is a physical embodiment of the planet, just reconnecting with the things that it's made out of.
Yeah, just using your hands.
And these flippy floppies that you got on, they're rubber, so it insulates you from that charge.
Right.
That's why I walk barefoot as much as possible.
Right. Very good.
You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, being in the soil, I'm
Yeah.
sure there's
So
other benefits
that's
too,
the
but-
beginning of it. It's just having my hands. It's like suddenly I just feel this calmness, and I just saw a hummingbird, so I'm backing up for a second because that's gratitude.
Yeah.
They're going to migrate any day now. So that may be the last hummingbird we'll see until next May.
I had never seen them on the East Coast where I live ever my whole life. The first time I saw them, it was in California. It was just so, I was like, wow, so majestic of a creature. And then when I saw a few around here in the past few weeks, I was like, oh, hummingbirds!
Yeah, they're amazing little things. I love them. But anyway, back to so I noticed, I've always loved the gardening. Even when I was a child, The Secret Garden was my favorite book, and probably I would think a lot of people have that same childhood feeling of The Secret Garden. I love that story. So have you read it? No? They're flies. Well, you're going to have to read it because it is a childhood classic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is just a sweet book.
I'll write it down.
The Secret Garden. Yeah. So I would play Secret Garden in my mom's yard as a child, and that feeling of being able to grow something and stick it in the earth and then watch it actually grow is just, you're creating miracles, it feels like, But I noticed mostly when I had kids and I would need to just I had 3 children and I needed to get away, I needed a break. And if I came outside and just dug around in the dirt, I could just feel all of that tension just kind of disappear. And again, that feeling of being able to create and to just dig And then not even just create, but just like pulling weeds. And it seemed like everything has like an analogy, or it's like you pull weeds and you feel yourself pulling them out of your own life. That's how I do. Like,
Sure.
I'm going to get rid of this, whatever it is that I'm feeling right now. Let's pull these weeds out. And then that, and then just, when you water, like watering and thinking about needing that drink and that refreshment, everything. The garden seems to just be this little analogy of life. One of the biggest things for me, though, more than having like a vegetable garden or anything like that, is just being able to create beauty, which to me is just amazing, really amazing to spend one's time making things beautiful. And there was a time for me when I would have thought that was not spiritual, believe it or not. There was a time where that seemed to be like, oh no, God wants us to always be like doing His will, whatever that meant. And so, kind of like working for the Lord, that's what it would be called, like in the culture I came from. And so I felt like my gospel at that time was one of more of scarcity, because somehow that was better, which doesn't make any sense now. But when I think of in those days, it was like that. Like, God wants us kind of to, well, money is not supposed to matter, so be poor, lack. Yeah, just one day, I do not even remember how it happened. I probably read something, but just like you were saying, where you have this like almost this light or this voice, or like it comes on you, this enlightenment all of a sudden of like, God created all this beauty. How could you think that you are not to create beauty as well? Yeah. And I was just blown away by that and very happy about that. That it really was okay to spend some money on beautiful things. And I've never been a stuff person, so it doesn't mean I would run out and buy a bunch of stuff. I don't care about stuff. But there are things that just make you happy. And so I think we should have those things that make us happy. And if they don't make us happy, get rid of them. But I mean, right there, there's a sign that says welcome with that little hummingbird there.
Oh,
You see it? So my little grandson gave me that from the dollar store. So $1, but that thing makes me so happy. But anyway, so beauty doesn't have to cost anything. It's just a matter of nurturing it again, and just creating something that will come about and grow and give me pleasure and others pleasure. And that's something I've noticed a lot that I didn't try to create at all, but people will come to the house and say, I feel so much peace here. Well, how they do that, I don't know. I can't like create peace. Well, maybe. Do you think that's it?
I think
Because I care about people?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a very peaceful place. The environment's very nice and pleasant here, right?
Yeah.
But in addition to that, you're someone who literally, just like you said, you wanted these flowers, this beautiful little water fountain here, this nice little area just to hang out in. You have a sunroom over there. Like the whole house is designed around like kind of living in, I want to say, almost in harmony with nature in a way. Like, you have your own kind of like, you got your beautiful garden over there. Not as much this year, but
Not as
hey,
much this year.
no worries. But I think it's, honestly, I just think it's who you are, Marla. You're a very, very loving person. And all these other external manifestations that I just mentioned are expressions of you and Tom into the world. And people see that when they come in. It's just a very homey place.
Yeah,
Very
I
comfortable
love that.
place.
I never set out to say, I am going to create a calm place. But somehow the beauty, and that's what's really cool. Like, we are each our own separate, different type of person, our own image of God is what I might call it. And so my image of God is this. This is who I am. And if people can find peace with that, that's really lovely to me. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the idea of creating beauty and nurturing things and how it doesn't have to be difficult or cost a lot to do it is a beautiful concept. And when we're talking earlier about how do you know if you're doing something in alignment with divinity or not in the beginning of this conversation, I think that's kind of what it's about. When we see the beneficial qualities of the world and we find a way to be in alignment with them, we are mirroring the divinity that we see in our own action. Because you see it. It's out there. The entire world is this beautiful thing that's constantly would grow lush and wild if we didn't try and tamper it. And
Yeah.
if we can find a way to be in harmony with cultivating it in positive ways, it's a very beautiful life. And you can take that in so many different directions, cultivating positive interactions between people, being a counselor, for example, or cultivating, a healthy body for people who are sick, being a doctor. You can cultivating beautiful images, being a painter, cultivating beautiful food and gardens, all kinds of things. Some form of
Yeah.
cultivating positive aspects of the world within inside our own lives and being an active principle of that is being in alignment, I would say. That's what it's all about. Finding that which you see in the world that you love and find beautiful and somehow being a part of that.
Right.
You know?
Right. The thing that you love, that you find beautiful. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to segue into our last question here. I think
Okay.
it's kind of a good one actually to go into from here because maybe beauty is part of your answer. I'm not sure. But what do you believe is after this thing passes
Right.
by?
Pause.
What do you believe is the meaning of life if you believe there is one at all?
Gosh, I feel like we've kind of covered that. The meaning of life.
Well, if you feel we've covered it, in summation, what would be your closing statements then?
Well, for me, because of course it has to be just for me, the meaning would be actually listening to what God has to say to me and then doing it. That would be my meaning to life. So I think, so I'm thinking of Jesus and when he was here, how he kept wanting wanting people that were around him to really like listen. He would often say something about whoever has ears to hear, let them hear. I think he wanted people to really settle down and listen to what God had to say to them. And I think he showed them in his own person that it wasn't a scary thing at all. It was a loving thing. Because usually whenever he talked about really listening, it would come with him doing good things. And in fact, that's mostly what he did, is just went around and did good things, you know. So to me, the meaning of life again is listening and being aware that I am here for a purpose. I don't know what that is, but if I can listen, then it'll just happen. I don't. So, like we were saying, if people come here and they say it's so peaceful, or can I just stay here a while because I just need some peace in my life. And I've had people do that, actually ask if they could just stay here a while. To me, that's very meaningful, and it's the meaning of life for me. So tell me what's meaningful to you, or what is the meaning of life to you? Do we have a totally different grid for that?
I love how you keep using the word grid because it very links in with my perspective of creating reality because I feel we do create our own realities based on what we overlay of our regular thoughts. Because I think the energy of the world is constantly responding to our own grid, which would be, for those who don't see my perception of it, a grid is all of our thoughts and all of our conceptions, the matrix of our being expressed into the world. I feel that the meaning of life probably is not fully understandable from my perspective, being a human being as compared to an infinite being. Um, However, as far as I can see it, it isn't necessarily about doing the divine will. And what I mean by that is I don't think for myself that the divine has an absolute plan for what I'm supposed to do. It's more of life is a question and we are the answer. So the divine is asking a question. What would you do if you could do anything? If you had a world to play and dance and sing in, what would you make of it? How would you grow? What would you embody? And everything that we do is the answer. And the divine has guidance for us, but that guidance is inextricably linked with what we want to do as well. So it's like when we want to be, it's like, should I be a doctor or should I go be a painter? What's more important? I don't think either one's more important. It's
Right.
what do you feel is important in your life? Get in touch with that and then ask God advice on how to do that. And then God will give you lots of really beautiful examples of how you can help people, how you can be in alignment with the divine will while doing that thing. And so you have lots of options you can do. You find what resonates with you, and then you ask for the divine guidance in relation to that thing. So I think there's a strong free will aspect for me embodied in there. However, within that, I feel the point of life is to grow in some way. I think if we look at plants, they're always growing. If we look at animals, they're always multiplying. If we look at anything that we can call alive, it's doing this thing called growth in some way, usually towards a light or to some form of perfection of what it is. And so, whatever you really believe is your deepest desires, find ways to perfect that in a way that's harmonious with whatever is the creation force that you feel. Whether you call it Mother Nature or God or whatever, whatever is that truly empowering spirit that seems to be embodying all things, get in alignment with that, also in alignment with what you wish to be within the world, and grow in that capacity as much as you're capable to do so.
Yeah, that's good. I like the way you express that. Yeah. Well, I agree because I think you worded it really well. Like when I say maybe being in alignment for whatever God has for me or trying to listen to what God has for me, I too don't think that He's just got this one line, like, oh, I want you to follow like this path and it has to be this path. I don't think it really works like that. That's really narrowing Him down into something extremely like boring and human. So, so yeah, I think He would say, well, like you said, do you want to be a painter? Do you want to be a doctor? And so, whichever is really something that you're like, I really would love to be a painter, well, then be a painter. Yeah. And then just being aware of Him and, just maybe more in tune with the world. And, yeah.
And if you feel like you want to be a painter and help people, you could do painting therapy. That's a thing. Why can't you blend the two if you feel called to be both?
That's true.
Like there's always ways I think to tweak it to get your cake and eat it too. I think you're supposed to not just stare at cake. I think you're supposed to eat it. That's what it's made for.
Yeah.
But you have to find a way to be in alignment with knowing that it's okay to enjoy your life. And doing things in moderation, doing things that are important to get done, but also because the divine has guidance on that too. You do need to put gas in your car if you want to go on this trip.
Right.
Like you got to do both things.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I think there's beautiful guidance for both. We just have to find a way to be in tune with it.
Maybe one more thing as we're talking that I think that I haven't said yet, but I think that is at the bottom of a lot of what I think is just that we are all like extremely loved. Just extremely. I get choked up thinking about it, but I think that so many, especially younger people, are disconnected from any kind of spirit. Maybe they've heard a lot of judgment. Yeah, I don't know, but there's this feeling of like they're just kind of out there on their own, and that there's nothing really that important. There's nothing that they feel connected to or attached to. And I really believe that each person is so beloved, and that, yeah, that God would say to each one of us, "You are my beloved child." And that has a lot of meaning for me. Yeah.
Absolutely. I, everything I think about, I tend to have an emotional viewpoint of it, which I'm very in alignment with what you just expressed there, and also a very analytical viewpoint of it. And my analytical viewpoint of that same thing is something can't inherently come from nothing. Is I think that's
Right.
a philosophical, pretty sound argument. And so something can't come from nothing. Whatever is has gone on for eternity.
Yeah.
And so if it was something that chipped away at itself constantly,
Mm.
times infinity, something that cuts away, doesn't exist anymore. But it still exists right now. Therefore, whatever it is something that at the very least supports itself.
Mm.
So the very basis of divinity is something that supports itself. And so there is some form of support that is always out there. And it's just eternal.
Mm. That's beautiful. Yeah.
It's always there. And we have to open up to it. And we have to find a way to let go of everything else to be able to connect with it. And for some people, it'll be gardening that gets you in that really connected place.
Right.
For other people, it might be painting. It's probably something that's creative in some way.
Probably.
Usually. Or fixing
Yeah.
something. You know, you can be, a mechanic and you could just be in the zone. You just really love
Yeah.
helping people in that way and getting
Right.
that feeling of being part of a greater whole in some way. Feeling connected, of how we're connected to the things is what I think a lot of people miss out on.
Yeah.
One of the teachers I like to listen to, Sadhguru, one of his lectures, he talks about what he thinks one of the biggest diseases in this world is a lack of inner space. People don't feel that infinite thing inside themselves. And because of that, they feel, like they don't feel like this. And it's whatever taps you into the infinite is what you're going to need to get through that piece that holds you back. And sometimes it's judgment that's holding us back, and we need to tap into feeling more love. Sometimes feeling unworthy is what it is, and so we need to cultivate ourselves, which will make us feel worthy. Where do I feel unworthy? Well, I don't feel like I'm good enough at this. What could you do that you enjoy that would help you become better at that thing? Do I not feel I'm a good painter, but I really want to be like a good painter? Well, go and see more art. Find things that inspire and feel that welling up sensation of and learning and growing. It's all about, comes back to, for me at least, growth and cultivation. And the more we can cultivate these connections to non-finite, non-limited states of internal emotion, and that's what is the divine. When we can tap into those states, we're seeing the divine version of something. And love, joy, compassion, and equanimity are the divine states of mind in my mind. And I seek to embody them as much as I can, because when I do, everything else seems not so important.
Right.
The bigger things in the world, it's kind of like, I could die tomorrow from a super volcano erupting. That is a big fear for a lot of people. But it's like, if I was dead, well, even if I did not exist and I was entirely wrong,
Yeah.
why would I care anymore? There wouldn't be a me to care.
Uh-huh.
But as far as I know, something can't come from nothing. So whatever I'm made of is an eternal energy. So why wouldn't I continue to go on in some form or fashion? And I will always continue to go on. And if something does come from nothing, Marla, I'll tell you what, it has infinite power, because it comes out of nothingness and can do it over and over again. At least there's no proof that it couldn't do that. So no matter what,
Right.
as far as I can say,
there's some kind of infinitely powerful or eternal energy that I'm made of. And connecting with that, I think, is what you're talking about, is people connecting with the knowing that it cares about you because it is you. It wants you to do well.
Right.
You know?
Definitely. Yeah. Very much. Right. Very connected. Yeah.
Well, on that note, I think that's a perfect ending. Thank you for joining me today, Marla.
Ah, thank you. This was great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Thank you for all of you watching, tuning in today, and I hope you have a fantabulous day. Much love to all of you. Mwah. Bye.
Hey, thanks for watching. And as always, if you enjoyed it, please do like and subscribe. Or, if you have any kind of questions or comments, leave them below. I do check it every Saturday when I post new stuff. So yeah, absolutely. Or if you want to potentially be on the podcast, I'm always interested in being exposed to new concepts and new ideas. So please don't be afraid to comment. See you around.